Hi, good morning everyone. Just a quick one. There's a video that I came across and I want us to talk about it. But before we speak about that video, I will want you to be patient enough to listen to this video to the end. Then I will come back and give my opinion about it. Just listen.
We cry today in Nigeria because that person did not. From the map that we have seen, we are not supposed to be in captivity at this time as a nation. But nothing was done. No altar was set up to drive that political agenda. When the sons of darkness saw that there was a gap, they went that person will be the president of this country. And I have no doubt in my heart that it was true. Are you there? So people went and told the person. I was not among the people. They went and told the person. And the person did nothing about it. He did not set up an altar around that purpose of God. You know what? If you don't set up an altar around it, it is open for manipulation. I don't want to go into details because it's a sensitive matter. We cry today in Nigeria because that person did not. From the map that we have seen, we are not supposed to be in captivity at this time as a nation. But nothing was done. No altar was set up to drive that political agenda. When the sons of darkness saw that there was a gap, they went and offered strange sacrifices. And even though once upon a time the person of which I speak was the darling of Nigeria, they were able to move that favor in another direction. Nigeria is spiritual. And the purposes of God that lock in the nation can only be realized by spiritual people. We weep today because a man refused to rise. The fact that is captured in the purpose of God does not mean that our partnership in terms of priesthood is not required for the purpose of God to come to pass. Listen to me. God's purposes must come to pass. It is only God's men that can change. Now I know that purpose will yet come to pass, but it will no longer be through that man. If you know that you are dispensable, are you there? That purposes can still come to pass without you. If you know that you are dispensable, then you'll become very intentional about your altar. Your altar is a sign that you are ready to fulfill destiny. If a 24-hour prayer watch for 6 months was set up, it doesn't matter which deity and which siren was sacrificed to. Yes, we'll see the efforts of their priesthood, but it will be insufficient to win the day. Please help me tell your neighbor, please don't attempt destiny. Finish destiny. Paul did not say that I attempted my calling. He did not say that I tried. He said, I've finished my course. Tell your neighbor again, the one on the other side, don't attempt destiny. Finish it. So eventually what the person did at the end of the day was that it was an attempt. He just attempted. He just attempted. And that window was manipulated again. Even though the time of our wilderness journey as a nation was measured in the balances and the end of it was decreed, we were turned again into the desert. And now our borders are besieged. Oh, we would have been basking in glory by now. The seasons of actualization as a nation would have been upon us. The true potential of the Igbo nation would have started speaking. The true potential of the Tiv nation. At this time, we should be taking mineral audits, mineral deposits audits, and how foreign investments can come into our corridors to take advantage of the vast islands of mineral deposit. The God of heaven that created Nigeria never intended that any citizen of this country would be poor. And I speak just from my knowledge of our capacity and our potential from the perspective of the oil industry. Never intended that any poor man will walk this ground. But when you bring altars and a conclave of witches are the determinant factors.
Now, you have seen that video, and I have some things to say. But first of all, it's not whatever I want to say now is not an attack on the person of this man of God. I actually respect this man of God for what he stands for. And what I'm going to say now is not a way to counter what he said. Now, of a truth, what he said is actually true in the case of man, in the sense that there are actually people who attempt to fulfill their destiny. But in the case of this man, Peter Obi, which though he didn't mention the name, but everybody can deduce that that is the person who is talking about. In the case of that man, I for one, in my opinion, I don't think Peter Obi attempted to fulfill destiny. I actually think that Peter Obi actually went all the way that he needed to go legally post-election. All that he needed to do, he actually did what was required of him to do. Just that we have a very corrupt system that truncated the whole thing at the end of the day. But my opinion on this matter is not really in that direction. My opinion on this matter is actually to admonish on the larger part, to admonish the church. Because if actually we actually want to examine what really happened, and in light of what this man of God just said now, I think the culprit, the person who actually did wrong in the whole thing, I think the person who is to be blamed is the church. Now, hear me out why I said it is the church. Please, first of all, sorry for any background noise, because I'm actually in the office, so sorry for any background noise that may have interfered. So let me continue what I'm saying. The person who is to be blamed in all this, guys, not like blame as in, I think they share a blame in the way the whole thing turned out, is the church. Now, hear me out. Let me tell you why I feel the church has a blame to take in all this, in the sense when he said don't attempt to fulfill destiny. Because he made mention of something that the man ought to, raise an altar to God. Now, I remember back before the election came here, there were prophecies coming out from every denomination, most churches, about the fact that about the election and all. They were coming from everywhere at the election and all. And the mood, if you read the mood at that time, it's as if the church knew exactly that time was a church, a very important time in the church history. The church actually believed, let me put it that way, the church believed that Obi was God's instrument, there was an instrument God wants to use at that time. But my confusion or my concern about it is this: if the church actually knew that Obi was actually God's instrument that God wants to use during that election, why didn't the church actually key into it more than the way they did? In the way the whole thing played out. Because if actually the church actually believed that Obi is an instrument that God wants to use to change the whole narrative about change the destiny of this nation, the church needed not to be told to raise an altar or do anything to key into the project that God is actually doing. Let me give you an example. We read the Bible. In the Bible, everyone is more familiar with the book of Daniel, the dream that Nebuchadnezzar had, and when he forgot it, and later he asked men to interpret the dream. And it was a dream about the statue of different metals. Now, in the statue, Daniel was there when Daniel gave the interpretation of that statue. He told Nebuchadnezzar, he said, you, Nebuchadnezzar, you are the head of gold. When he was interpreting the dream, he said, you are the head of gold. He didn't say Babylon is the head of gold. He didn't say your grandson Belshazzar is the head of gold. He said you are the head of gold. Now after you, then there will be another kingdom. Now, it means that according to prophetic timing, Babylon as an empire is only supposed to last. The validity of that kingdom was supposed to last as long as Nebuchadnezzar was alive. So which means that immediately after the death of Nebuchadnezzar, Babylon should fall. But the question now is, how is it possible that the kingdom of Babylon was able to survive from Nebuchadnezzar to his son and to his grandson who took over? It was even during that his grandson that he fell. What happened? It was because there was a type of the church that was there that stood at the helm of affairs and was directing the hearts of the kings in doing the right thing, especially when they lost their way. I don't know if you understand me now. Especially when they lost their way, they were there to guide the heart of kings so that they don't lose their way with God. And that one makes the kingdom survive that longer time for before Daniel was pushed aside and all that. Now, Daniel was a type of the church, so it tells you how important the church is. At least, I think for one think that it has got beyond when the church usually try to play this passive role when it comes to governance and all that. Because the thing is this, with the way we play the whole thing out, who is at the receiving end of the whole brutality today? Killing, maiming, herdsmen attack, banditry and everything. The church cannot say that they are not they have not had a fair share of the woes that have befallen this country. So we must, in as much as we try to raise pastors and raisers, we must on our own as a church decide also to raise men who can actually, and I mean this with all deliberate attempts, that they should raise men who can stand up just like this man to go into the helm of affairs and turn things around. We don't have to put ourselves at that disadvantage when we hope that things will turn out fine, and the only thing we can just do is just to pray when we know that we have an active role in trying to make sure we ensure that things actually go in a way that turns out to our good at the end of the day. So, be that as it may, I'm not saying what the pastor said is wrong, no. What the pastor said is actually on point. But what I'm saying is this, I think it's high time the church actually do more than what they did before, and do more than what they did before. 2027 is around the corner, and the church cannot afford again. For me, I see it as an opportunity for the church to actually correct her mistakes. So 2027 is coming around the corner. It's an opportunity for the church to correct her mistakes. So I don't think the church actually need for someone now, if actually the church believe that man is actually God's instrument to use in changing the fortune of this country, and also to ensure the survival of the Christendom and the survival of this country as one together, then the church should, as a matter of fact, key into it, set up a prayer chain to ensure the set up a prayer chain without being told about it. Do what they ought to do just to make sure that everything goes smoothly and to ensure victory at the end of the day. Because believe you me, when the chips are down, when the whole thing turned out the other way around, even though we will try not to take responsibility for what obviously we're supposed to do, it still turns out that we are the one who didn't really do what we needed to do. So my point is this: we should use 2027 to correct the mistake. The church should use 2027 to correct the mistake that they didn't need to correct at the time they need to correct it. That is my own point about it. I'm sorry this video is long, but I think someone has to say this. So I respect this man of God. I'm not saying, what I'm saying is not to actually antagonize him. No, he's on point. in the case of a man trying to fulfill destiny, they should go all the way. To be as himself, what I'm saying legally, he actually went all the way. I think the church on their own actually laid back, because if what the church actually did during the time of the GEJ, when everybody came back together to protest against it, was actually what the church did after the aftermath of this election, I think there would have been a change, not in the way we've seen it, but in the better way that we're seeing it. So my point is the church should do better. Thank you. See you in the next video.